So we have to think about this. Caller, you on Z Live. Go ahead.
Hubert,
speak to me.
How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Yes. In the absence of Mr. Shirago Lang, this is my contribution. I like what I'm hearing from you today. However, this is what one of my concerns. And the Bahamian people, the lovely sovereign people, good afternoon to all of you. Concern one, it's very imperative that the individual voters, citizens, sovereigns of this country benefit from the sovereign natural resources for the very same thing you're talking about. When we're not talking about water, we're talking about light. When we're not talking about light, we're talking about food. When we're not talking about food, we're talking about health. We're not talking about health, we're talking about immigration. When we're not talking about immigration, we're talking about corruption and discrimination and all of these different attacks and abuse. It's egregious, and so it's imperative. It's number one. It's the number one focus for every business, every individual, every church, every Christian, every Muslim. I don't care what you are. You hold a citizen card or passport, Bahamian passport, this one is for you.
Okay, thank you so much. And so we continue with the whole idea of looking at the macroeconomic impact. And finally, one I would want to mention is innovation. Innovation usually comes with a cost, an additional cost. We are not going to be willing to go out on the limb and to take additional risks in the face of great uncertainty. And so innovation may be impacted. And if innovation is impacted, then obviously we are not going to be creating additional capacity, additional depth, and there's going to be a curtailment on the growth of the businesses, the competitiveness of the businesses, and consequently, when you extrapolate that across the country, the competitiveness of the country vis-a-vis its neighbors and other competitors. And then you have the socio-economic impact. Poverty, unemployment, we mentioned that before, and also the state of living, the standard of living. So poverty is always linked to your ability to move into a better situation. But always consider the fact that there are all these individuals who are trapped in, that poverty belt. They call it the poverty line, below the poverty line. And those individuals are always most vulnerable because they do not have the ability at this point in time to deal with the issues imposed. Recently I had a conversation and one individual say, I went out and I saved, I worked hard and I bought a generator. Another individual says, can't take this no more, I'm going to solarize my house. My point to them was, that's good and well. Appreciate that. That's a good thing. But we always have to be mindful of the individuals who cannot even think in that direction. The whole idea of finding an alternative source is not even in their psyche because they are more focused about putting some food on the table tonight without having any regard for the certainty of what will come tomorrow. Or putting some food in the fridge, the same fridge which now has no power, the same food which is now being spoiled and has to be thrown out, and these individuals are not able, not the best capable of replacing that. We have to bear in mind that these things have wide and far-reaching impact, especially on the individuals who are most vulnerable. Stability of employment. So when my employer no longer can make enough money to sustain my employment over the course of a week, over the course of a month, I'm now on reduced weeks, reduced days, across the length and breadth of the country. But in many ways, and I think that the minister said this recently, BPL in New Providence subsidize the operations of BPL in other places. So, is there a formula by which BPL in New Providence is privatized? And the various locations in private hands are subsidized. So here in New Providence, no subsidy, totally privatized. in the various family islands, it is subsidized. And it is done on the basis of analysis and modeling. And I am assuming, this is just a gut check, I am assuming that the sum total of that subsidy with the businesses in private hands and running at an efficient level becomes cheaper than running the entire thing. And therefore, the country is better for having done that. Caller, you on Z Live. Go ahead quickly.
Before we sell BTC, we'll sell FNM and PLP as a party first.
Okay. So I'm not saying to sell it. I'm saying, is there a consideration? Should that be looked into? And sometimes we think about privatization, and the immediate thing which jumps to mind is maybe what have been done in the past, where it is sold to entities considered